welcome to Startup Out of the Box with Marco Silva and Vitor Domingos.
On this episode, we're going to talk about how democratization and technology empowerment affects organizations. Two things that will kill your ability to focus on your startup, just two. And for the last one, how CEOs are going to spend their time on the second act of a startup just after they get investment.
Poor guys.
Exactly. So how democratization and technology empowerment affects organizations. So this is an article from Harvard Business Review. I'm guessing you already saw this diagram. It's pretty much about how we're going to provide technology and how we're going to deal with the employees within the company. So the more technology you deliver to your own employees, the more access they'll have to make their own decisions, and they feel more empowered on doing their own stuff on the startup.
But it's also about just throwing them technology. Yes, you have the reason why you use it, but it's more how technology nowadays allows your employees, your team to work independently, so that they don't depend on you or each other, and they can make their own decisions based on the data that your company has or how they interact with customers, because you have a lot of products and a lot of technologies that allow the employees nowadays just to do it themselves. They don't need to depend on someone else. So, for example, maybe 10 years ago, 15 years ago in a big corporation, an employee would need to request a specific type of data from a DBA to extract data from an SAP system or a big enterprise system, while nowadays you have stuff like Google Analytics or Google BigQuery, where they can just go there, make some simple clicks and get the data they want for analytics of their product. So they don't depend anymore on different people, and it's more democratized the access to that data.
It is not just data, but also about technology, right? So we give tools to employees for them to make up their own decisions, either to post to production or to compile something, or even to how to build something, because they have access to tools, they have access to the internal organization, the machine of making up decisions, instead of just asking someone that could either test it, or they can just go and see if the whole thing is going to work out the way they plan. So they have access to these kind of tools. We provide them access for them to make their the best decision about something. And this diagram from Harvard Business Review tries to map the four different kind of aspects on how employees feel empowered and how they have access to make up their own decisions. So we have the kind of the Uber powered kind of employee, where everything is delivered on the cloud, it's on demand, it uses artificial intelligence, it is about extreme personalization, and obviously personal devices, where employees can bring their own device to the company, they can use their own tools. I actually like that one. You never tell a construction work to work with a specific hammer. They bring their own hammer from work to
like chefs. They have their own knives.
They have their own set of knives. So I really like this one of when employees bring their own equipment and their own device to work. And also they also talk about the kind of the type of work that you do with this kind of empowerment or this kind of technology, which is the gig technology. Work more on projects rather than just work for a company, right?
There's a big change in organizations, so it's more it's normal in the startup. People might be used to this already, because that's usually kind of the way startups have to work, but when you transition from a startup to a big organization, sometimes you lose some of this flexibility, but that was the reason why your organization grew, so it's important to pay attention to that.
Yeah, exactly. And then you have a couple of three more, which is kind of the downgrade of the Uber empowered, which is kind of the traditional delivery mode. When you work on a specific project, you use company tools. You don't feel empowered to make actually those kind of decisions, because it's daily routine, it's business as usual for you.
There's a hierarchy, there are management, there's waterfall process.
Exactly. And then there's two opposites, right? The first one is you still continue to do the same kind of delivery work that you do at nowadays, but you have access to more kind of project work and more gigs. And the other one is it gets some kind of variations where we use cloud technology also, less artificial intelligence to make up your decisions, but you have access to more technology, but you still work on a more non-flexible kind of work, more traditional one.
You could say it's almost like the process of digitalization of a company.
Exactly.
They start adding these tools, but they keep the processes and the culture the same. And then they realize, why did this digitalization process failed? Well, because you just added the tools. You didn't change the culture, you didn't change the process, you didn't change how people work, you didn't empower people. So if you just put tools in something but don't empower people,
it's going to be the same.
Yeah, nothing changes.
Right. So questions for our audience today. We have two, right? So the first one is...
So what do you think will change in the future of a workplace?
Exactly. So are we going towards kind of, as we said, bring your own device, more... have access to more technology, we can make up your own decisions because we feel empowered to do so, or we actually need that kind of structure and processes and workflows from the bigger corporations. And the second one is, do you as an employee feel empowered enough at your own startup, at your own company? And if you don't feel enough powered, what do you think that should be changed in the future?
Yeah. How do you feel? Why do you think that is? Yeah. So now for our second theme, 2 things that will kill your ability to focus. So this is kind of a recurrent topic in startups, and you see Medium blog posts and people complaining on Twitter and writing rants, and then you have people like Gary Vee. That's all about focus and focus and focus, but then you have all of this flood of information coming at you, from Slack, from IMs, from Twitter, from Facebook, and you just lose focus of your day and what you thought about. Okay, this is what I'm going to work on today, and you get the end of the day and nothing happens.
Yeah.
So I think this is a recurrent, it's a normal discussion. I remember reading about this from stuff written in the 80s, in the 90s. When the email appeared, everyone thought that email is the source of all distractions. Now it's Slack, the source of all distractions. So what can companies do to fight these distractions? So Vitor, on your side, what do you do usually to fight this?
If you think about the kind of emails and the kind of communications that you get from when you work on a company or a startup, I usually split those in the kind of when you get an urgent email. Well, if you get an urgent email, then it's because it's not important, and if you get an important email, then it's not urgent. So I usually split my emails in those 2 categories, and I think that if you need to actually focus on something, you need to turn off all of the notifications that you have. It's going to be from instant messaging or kind of communication tools that you use, or email and stuff like that. You just need to focus on developing, on building a business plan, on doing your own stuff, and you need to be quiet, probably without internet. Just focus on that and on actually.
Blasphemy without internet.
Because that's the best way to do it. Otherwise, you get a lot of notifications. You get annoyed because you, at the end of the day, not going to do anything else. And because you just mentioned Gary Vee, I think that the early hours of the morning, when you start doing some work and your employees or the people that work with you, they are not fully awake, you can deliver a lot of work at that time. And for me, that's kind of a habit I created when I had my own startup, is that because I had my own startup when my first daughter was born. So I did a lot of work after she went to bed, around, I don't know, between 10 and 1, 2 a.m. So I got this kind of owl experience of, you just start working around midnight, you get really awake and you start doing stuff. So I would, because you don't have any kind of distraction, you don't have anyone to nag you about things, and you actually can deliver those kind of stuff. But that's just part of the ability to focus, because the other half is the project of overload, right? You have a lot of tasks to do. You need to deliver this on time. You see a lot of people nagging you because you need to deliver them by yesterday.
Everyone is busy,
and either you didn't delegate the things properly, as example, or you actually have too much on your plate to deliver. So what's your experience on that? How you deal with that kind of stuff?
So on the project overload, it happens sometimes. It crawls in the environment of a startup where we start thinking, oh my god, we still have to do this, we have to do this. But it takes, once in a while, we stop, sit down, and sort of realize, okay, what are we working on? We said that we're going to work on this project, we were working on this new feature, but we decided this would look nice maybe 2 months ago, but now we know a bit more about the reality, we know about customers, we know that, well, there's no point of working on this, so let's just kill this. So we start cleaning our plate and start focusing on different things and what exactly is the priority now in the company. So it's important to realize that. So talk to your team, realize what everyone is working on, realize, okay, maybe we shouldn't be working on that anymore. There's no point on that. That was our old priority. Now the business priority is this. We explain why things happen, why things change. We're humans, we know that happens. We also need to realize what are the tasks that we are doing kind of recurring that we could optimize them or automate them. That's also important to do because
but you also need to have time to think about those activities that you need to automate, right?
Yeah, but that's the thing, like we get to a point as a team regularly, okay, let's think about this. It might be, we usually have regular Friday phone calls where we just discuss the state of the company or the state of what we are working on, and we just had, oh, what about this thing? So we thought, oh, now that you mentioned that, we're doing it like this, we're doing it like that. So usually it comes out up in the conversations and we incentivize everyone to talk about it. And it's important. It's not you as a manager that has to bring it up every time. In the beginning, it will feel like that. But you have to help your team to bring those issues up and make the team think about how they feel, if they feel overloaded, because that will then show you as a manager or responsible for a startup how your company is going.
Okay. One of the things that happens with project overload is when you I have my own experience of setting up specific tasks, and I know how long that task will take, right? I know roughly that if I need I don't know, let's say a new feature, it's going to take 5 days to develop, right? Do you actually ask your own team about what they feel that task would take, how much longer that task will take, or do you just set up those expectations for them? Or is it a mix of, I think that's going to take 5 days, what do you think? It's going to take 3 more? It depends.
It's usually a discussion because I might have an idea of, okay, this task is going to involve A, B, and C, and while we're talking about it, they might say, no, it also involves X, Y, and Z, and A doesn't involve anymore because we changed this. So it has to be a discussion of the process. So even if, and as a developer, you always know that it's a pinch of, like a salt of rain, and the rule is if someone says it's going to take 2 days, double it by 2. That's usually the rule for us. For example, there was a guy I used to work with a couple of years ago that usually would say, oh, I can do this in 15 minutes. But 3 days later,
I think that he said that in a Russian accent.
Kind of.
I know that kind of story.
So he became like the 15-minute guy because everything took 15 minutes, even 1 week later.
But I think that from a project manager or for a founder or CTO, when you look at the task, because you have the bigger picture, you know how long that's going to take, but you actually need the input from the person that actually is going to develop that that kind of work. So it's going to be their expectation of how long that task will take, plus your experience and your knowledge and your big picture of the whole thing to complement all of that. Because if you just do one part of those kind of project management, that's going to fail because you're going to fail expectations, right?
You have to have a view of the entire thing. Because that might depend on more stuff. Usually you don't want features depending on something else, but you know that everything works together and you have that big picture. So it's a conversation between everyone in the team.
So, and for questions for our audience today on this topic, it's going to be again 2. The first one is about the ability to focus, right? So is there anything else that you feel that you need to have to create this kind of ability to focus and deliver that kind of work or deliver your own kind of startup? And the second one is about project management. So how do you do project management? You just discussed that, the kind of both experience from the people that actually not going to develop that, and from someone with the bigger picture. So how do you do this kind of project management, and then how do you deal actually with excessive meetings? That's one thing that we didn't discuss, but
excessive meetings.
But it's going to be just one full topic on the next episodes.
I need the coffee to discuss that.
Yeah. We're gonna have
a big one.
We're gonna have a meeting about meetings.
I know you like meetings, so we're gonna have a meeting about a meeting. Oh God, I used to do that. Oh, I'm having flashbacks of all the time. Where we used to have a meeting to prepare ourselves for a meeting that we were going to have in the next day. It's like, oh.
Exactly. So how CEOs are going to spend their time on the second act? The first act is actually up until they get the investment. Either they're going to do bootstrap, we already discussed that, or they get investment from outside. And on the second act is how they think about their own time, because the first one is really chaotic because you need to invest a lot of time to build things. Afterwards, you need to know how to spend your time. And this is again an article from Harvard Business Review, very insightful about how CEOs spend their time. And from this, I think
it was kind of interesting that the two biggest changes when they interviewed these 22 CEOs.
Yeah.
So the biggest change for them was after they got investment, they started thinking more about succession planning and talent planning.
Yeah.
So the succession planning, I was thinking like you just got investment and you're the CEO of the company, so you're already thinking about who's going to take your place. I think this is maybe too soon to think about it, but might be reasons that the article doesn't explain and the chart doesn't show. But the second and the third one that we're talking that they are thinking more about, the talent planning. So you get investment. Yes, it's one of the most important phases. Okay, I'm going to grow my company now. Who exactly should I hire? Because those people will most likely be more senior people, so they will have a huge impact in the next months of the company. So that's really important that you spend time, because now you have resources for that. Don't go too fast. Take time to really understand who do you need and why do you need them, and if they are the right people for it. So that makes sense that this is you're going to spend more time on this.
Yeah.
And the other one is, of course, strategic moves. So you have investment, you have a board of directors now, maybe already had, but now you have to think more about the strategic plan. That how are you going to do what you told your investors you were going to do. So you have to stop thinking about the product as much. Trust the team, the people you hired. Are you going to hire to develop that? But your focus at this point will be, where is this company going, and how can I make this company get there?
Well, I think that you're pretty much right. So if you just make this, if you try to draw a picture here, it's about, so you get investment, perfect. Now what they think is about what's going to be the future. What's going to be the future for the company, and probably who's going to be best placed to lead the company in specific areas. So I take this as the succession planning and talent planning as that one. As do I have the necessary people within the company to take the company forward? Are they strong enough to take the leadership, or should I find another one to take their place? And the second one is where the company is going to, right? So it's kind of those two areas where they're going to spend a lot of time. But this is really interesting, because this article says that they're going to spend more time on strategic and succession and talent planning, but then they expect to spend less time with board interactions. So it's kind of fun, right? So they get the money, they get the board of directors, and then they try to find someone to fill their place on the board of directors so that they can focus on figuring out the success for the company.
Yeah, you're not going to speak less with the board of directors. You're going to speak more with them.
So it's kind of right. It's kind of hard to understand this, and
you
also,
might know your board of directors better than you know your family at one point, maybe.
Exactly, and then the fifth one, it's about the organizational change. So they also say that they expect to spend less time than the previous act on organizational change, which doesn't make any sense. So because they want to find better talent, they want to think about succession, they want to plan the strategic moves, the next ones, but they also think that because they're going to hire all of these people, nothing is going to change in the company.
Yeah, usually
the culture is going to be the same.
Yeah, usually you know that a company changes when they get to the first 10 people, then it's the 30, then it's the 50, then 100. There's always a massive change.
It's always changing. Yeah, every time you bring a talent or bring a director to the company, the company is going to change.
Yes.
Sometimes for better, sometimes for worse, but that's life, right? So as a CEO, you need to make sure that you also going to spend some time making sure that the organization is going to change for good, not for bad. So I think that this is kind of a mixed bag of answers here.
Yeah.
Because when you look at this organization change, and then also the business performance reviews, they're going to expect to spend less time on that. Okay, I get it. So they want someone to do the business reviews for them. I think that this how CEOs are going to spend their time in the second act, it's kind of awkward. I don't feel the same as these 22 CEOs, but that's kind of my experience and feeling.
Yeah, it's the same for me.
Right.
I feel something like missing from this picture.
So questions for our audience regarding this topic. So the first one is, how do you going to spend your time on this kind of second act? So you get investment. How do you think you're going to spend your time?
Oh, well, you got investment. What changed in your schedule?
Exactly.
How did you spend more time for you?
Exactly. And so the first one is how you spend your time. The second one is how actually you as an employee of a startup, you feel that your CEO or CTO is spending their time. Is it being helpful? Is it being helpful to you, to the company? How do you feel about that? And that's pretty much it.
So that would be interesting. Like, how do you feel as an employee when you don't know what your CEO or your CTO is doing?
Exactly. That's a good question, right? For our audience. That's it.
Have a good one, people.